I can go to a game, and at the end of the day, I won't even remember who won the game or what went on. I will want to know how much people spent, what was the per capita spending for the thing. I mean, to me, sports is a business.
Hi, welcome to this edition of On Tap, presented by FCSI the Americas. I'm Wade Kaler, Executive Director. On Tap this week is a gentleman known across the food service and concession industry, named among the top 20 most influential people in the sports facility design and management industry. He's won multiple awards from other associations such as the National Association of Concessionaires, the International Association of Assembly Managers, Public Assembly Facility Management, and much, much more. A former board member and treasurer of FCSI the Americas, please welcome the president of the Bigelow companies, Mr. Chris Bigelow. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wade. Good to be here.
And that's a mouthful of awards, by the way. When I was even writing it, I'm like, man, this guy's got too many awards at this point.
So. It has something to do with old age. You know what I mean? They pile up.
Yeah. Well, you don't get it from just being old. Obviously, you're very good at what you've done. And honestly, I know I've known you for a long time. I know how active you are with a lot of other associations as well. So it's definitely kudos to you for all the accolades that you've received. We start off every one of these episodes the same way, including me talking essentially, which is tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you got into the industry, the hospitality industry, but then also about becoming a food service consultant on your own.
Sure. Many years ago, I was pretty sure I was going to get into the food business, restaurant business, hotel business, whatever. So I went to school for hotel restaurant management and to the Harvard of the West, UNLV, is where I graduated. And the first job offer I had out of school was to go to work with, at that time, ARA, which is now Aramark. And in their training program, one of the divisions I was exposed to was the sports and leisure group. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, this is where I belong. It was a great time. My first event was a Sly and the Family Stone concert. So that tells you how many years ago it was. Sly was missing. They were afraid he wasn't going to show up and we may have a small altercation at the concert. So, there's a lot of excitement that you don't forget. The interesting thing is the building, it was the Denver Coliseum, was where that occurred. Most of the buildings that I've worked on through the years, certainly they've all changed names 50 or 60 times. Half of them have been destroyed and don't even exist. But one of the oldest, the Denver Coliseum, is still there and still rocking and rolling. So it's interesting. Anyway, worked for ARA and then Volume Services after that, which now is part of Sodexo, and went up through the ranks in operations, ending up in sales and marketing. So I was out negotiating contracts for Volume. And finally in 88, after about 18 corporate mergers and new bosses on each one, I decided maybe corporate life wasn't what I was really happiest at. So I actually was like a lot of us, I was going to go into the restaurant business. And thank God that didn't work out so well. I never made it into the business. I had it all lined up, but we couldn't agree on a contract to buy this restaurant. And I got a call to help out and do some consulting work at that time, new minor league ballpark in Buffalo, New York. And starting from that, and that's 1988, I also realized there's a life out there as a consultant for food and beverage. And that's basically how I started. So since then, have been doing consulting for sports, leisure, convention center, performing arts, and that type of thing. Got into the design business because of that. And then the rest is history, as they say.
As I said, with the awards and stuff, you do a lot of stadiums, I know that Bigelow Company's been known for that for a long time, but what are some of the other major projects besides stadiums do you get into?
Well, I mean, basically stadiums, arenas, convention centers, performing arts centers. Like I say, that's pretty much
Yeah.
the focus that we do. We do a lot of work. Obviously, most of our work is in North America, both the
Right.
U.S. and Canada. We've done a little bit in Mexico. Some of the fun deals were outside the United States. So we got involved with soccer stadiums, two of them during the World Cup when it was in Brazil. We've done work in Turkey. We've done work in Asia. Again, but always in the sports and leisure side of the market.
How is or has it changed much over the last, like, say, 10, 15 years when it comes to designing stadiums?
Definitely. I mean, when I first started in the business as an operator, and certainly when we got into design too, the food and beverage part was really a necessary evil for most team owners. And, we would come to the table late. They had already laid out everything in the stadium, and whatever was left over, that's what you got to work with. Go ahead and make it work. Maybe it's been 10 years ago, maybe it's been a little longer than that. Team owners started to do this research called the voice of the fan. All the leagues, NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, all of them, NBA, they all do this now. And amazingly, the owners have put a lot of credence into this voice of the fan and what they want. Well, the first thing you hear about is the food and beverage operation. And
Right.
which always amazed me that they didn't complain about how much parking cost or how tough it was to get in the building, how much their tickets cost. But, if the hot dog was 50 cents more than they thought it should have been, they get a complaint. So all of a sudden, we got a little bigger seat at the table. And now when we go into facilities, ownership often is there at the very beginning to discuss their goals for food and beverage. So that's been a nice positive change for the food and beverage industry, both for the designers but also the operators.
Well, and also the addition of suites and everything else, where they realize what revenue can really come in from that. I know you guys. Uh, I know some of your projects directly that I've been a part of and seen in person, and that is, separate kitchens now for suites and things of that nature, to where you are driving a tremendous amount of revenue
Right.
as a food service operator.
And really, I mean, kind of it's all combined, but you're right. The other thing is those premium areas are where the owner derives the bulk of his revenues from ticket sales. So, he's making more
Right.
selling a suite or a club seat than just, the average fan that buys one or two seats or even a season ticket. So again, the priorities of the team have shifted to where the premium product has become paramount in the entire process.
So I won't put you on the spot for your favorite, but are there maybe 3 or 4 projects you've worked on that, for whatever reason, you're most proud of, whether it's the biggest or whether it was the hardest or whether it's the most glamorous or whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to narrow down. I think back, like San Francisco Giants with one, because we did both the management consulting and the contract negotiations when they were building. I think back then it was called, I don't know, Southwestern Bell Stadium or something. Then it became AT&T and Oracle, and I mean, it's had a million names, but one of the neatest baseball stadiums. And the baseball stadiums typically are the ones with the most personality because the architects can do a lot because of the space and the odd corners and all that. And then you plunk that on the water, overlooking either the bay or the city of San Francisco. It's tough to, not think of that one as a great stadium. Probably the biggest one was the Meadowlands in Jersey when we did that, again, with 2 NFL teams. Required a little bit of politics, of course, to make sure both teams, they wanted to make sure everyone got exactly the same thing for their game. So that was always interesting. And then, the World Cup stadiums, unique FIFA rules and regulations that you get into. Uh, those are all favorites. The thing that I enjoy the most is when I'm dealing with the same client, maybe on the fourth go round. In fact, when we were just in Orlando for FCSI, I went out to dinner the night before. Sorry, I missed that roller coaster ride, by the way. But with my client Alan Johnson, who runs the Amway Center and runs all facilities actually for the city of Orlando, Alan and I grew up in the business together and have worked in, I don't know, probably a half a dozen or a dozen different venues. And he's still a client and a great friend. Those to me are the most fun, is when you go back and keep that relationship going.
Yeah, I think that's one of the unique things when it comes to what you consultants do is you develop those relationships. And we do talk about relationships. We beat it down always together when we're at a conference or an event, or whether we're doing these shows. But it really is the most relationship heavy association that I've ever been a part of and manage, because it is those like you just explained. That client is not just a client. A lot of times, usually they become friends over time, and most likely, if you're good, you've worked with that client many times over, regardless of whether that person is in the same building as a renovation or they moved on to a new place or whatever. They kind of bring each other along, and I think that's what's so unique about FCSI members.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's a great atmosphere. It's bad when you're the guy on the outside looking in, saying, "How am I going to break into that building?" But you realize that obviously if the customer ends up making the decision, so they're going to pick the people they're comfortable with.
Who has been maybe your greatest influence in your career?
I mean, I've had several. The fella, as I said, when I first got that call to do a consulting job, a guy named Vince Pantuso, who unfortunately has now passed away, but he had been president. There's a lot of us that started at ARA or Aramark and then moved over to Volume Service. He was one of those. And he was the one when I was a regional manager said, Chris, you really should be in sales and marketing, which I think meant we're getting you the hell out of operations because you're driving everyone nuts. So, I mean, he was the one that started me with that and got me the first consulting job. And then, there have been others, different venue managers and different. Ken Young, another one, same kind of deal. We worked together in Indianapolis. And then he was the one that got me to move to Kansas City to run the ballparks there, and has been a good friend for years. He's gone on. He owns 5 different minor league baseball teams, and he never offered me a share in any of them. So maybe he's not that good a friend, but he was a big influence getting started and getting out there.
What's one thing about Chris Bigelow no one would ever guess when they meet you? A hobby or an interest or something like that maybe
I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. That I'm really a skinny guy and I exercise every day and run marathons. I don't know. It's funny in that being in the sports business all these years, I'm really not a huge sports fan. My wife is a much bigger sports fan than I am. I can go to a game, and at the end of the day, I won't even remember who won the game or what went on. I will want to know how much people spent, what was the per capita spending for the thing. I mean, to me, sports is a business. And so I do look at it from the business side. But they'd probably be surprised like that. The same way all the concerts I've been to and all that, I like music, but not the music anybody else has ever listened to. So, I mean, if you put a big band up there or Sinatra, all the Dead guys, I love it. But right now, Bruce Springsteen is making a tour, and all my contemporaries are going nuts. I personally wouldn't pay money to go see Bruce Springsteen, but I know I'm alone in that feeling.
Now, as long as I've known you, you've also been a big cigar aficionado. So tell me, or tell the audience, I guess, what are the, say, top 3 cigars you've ever had?
Well, you should have done this earlier. I gave them up about 4 years ago.
For a long time, you were definitely
Yeah,
known
yeah,
for it.
yeah.
And I figured there had to be time.
Oh, yeah. I think I smoked them for 54 years or some ridiculous number. And, it's funny because I was looking at one the other day. If you go play golf and there's always a lot of guys smoking cigars and everything. I still like the smell of it, but I don't have in fact, it was kind of on a dare with my wife who said, you can't give them up. I said, I could give them up tomorrow because it's not like a cigarette. It's not addictive. And I did. I was in I think I was in Green Bay, Wisconsin in the middle of winter on a project, sitting outside of the Hampton Inn, smoking a cigar by the dumpster in the back. It was the only place you could smoke. And I said, what the hell am I doing this for? But I mean, I you go way back. This is a different one, but Macanudos were always good. They were kind of mild and stuff. But I like a Nicaraguan cigar. I was never a big Cuban cigar guy because they were pretty off and on. You could never tell whether it was going to be good or bad.
Yeah.
Although I did go to Cuba. One of my favorite trips was to go to Cuba, and at $7 a cigar, no matter what you were smoking, you could sample a lot and figure out which ones you like, Perdomo or your name. So that was a good trip and a lot of cigars.
Somebody that's been in the industry for a long time, I always like to kind of get into you with this one and tell us about maybe one of your biggest mistakes or screw ups that you've ever made in your career. And not only, it's not just to make fun of you for doing a mistake, but also to, kind of what you learned from that so you'd never do it again.
I don't know what I've learned from it, but other than a few dollars short. I mean, particularly on the design side, there's so many details, there's so many things going on. And of course, the clients want everything faster than they ever did. And you've got a lot of consultants, MEP consultants, design consultants, everybody trying to get their work done on time. And, things do get lost once in a while. And, whether it's specifying the wrong electrical load, the wrong size ice maker that doesn't fit in the space anymore because somebody had to run a chase and they didn't tell us about. I mean, there's been a lot of those that you accept it's part of it. I mean, my feeling was if we were responsible, even partly responsible, we made a deduction and said, we're not going to charge you for it. I mean, we're going to try to help fix it. But, that end of it, it happens. And on the management consulting, I mean, there's been times where, especially when there's multiple parties and if you didn't do the work up front and find out exactly what the client's looking for, and you jump to a conclusion and say, I can do this for you, that for you, and you find out that's not what they're interested in. You do have to backtrack and say, okay, I made a mistake, and let's start over and get this going correctly.
I've been fortunate enough that I did a walkthrough with for one of your projects. I won't get into the details of it, but it was for one of the larger stadiums, not a remodel, but an addition. And I just remember doing the walkthrough with your employee, and where you all this wasn't your fault by any means. It's just
right.
What things happen. You talk about everybody getting involved, where you guys had designed the concession countertops and had the cutout for the Coke machines. And somebody came along the way and decided that was a great hole to run all the conduit through. And we're talking like 8 to 12-inch conduit or whatever it was. I don't remember for sure, but this giant, right. fiberglass conduit coming up through the hole. And I just remember looking at that going, what in the hell was anybody thinking? I guess somebody just must have thought you guys designed this massive square for that little round.
Just for them. No, that was it. And Tracy Taraski, as worked for me for years. And, she'd come call from a job site or something and say, oh my God. I said, Tracy, we'll get it fixed. We'll work through it. But you do just have to hold your head up and say, okay, we can make it work. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you gotta make some decisions in the field. And a lot of that goes back to having great relationships with the manufacturer's reps, with the manufacturers, to be able to call on them and help. We got a problem here. Can you help us get out of it? And 9 times out of 10, they'll be a big part of the solution. I'll tell you, I don't want to bore you with every war story, but
you're fine.
I just had a buddy. Actually, it's a university in the great state of Illinois. I won't say which one, but anyway, he was there and he said, "Did you guys design that?" I said, "Yeah, like 100 years ago." It's been at least 25 years, and they said, well, the chef was complaining that something about they can't plug in 2 pieces of equipment at the same time. And I said, first of all, you got to be kidding me. Second of all, have they talked to the MEP guys and talked about bringing in another electric line? He said, I don't know, but they mentioned your name several times negatively, like that damn consultant didn't look at the electric. And it's been 25 years they've been complaining about it, and nobody's figured out how to fix it.
It's probably the state. If it's in the state of Illinois, it probably got billed out to put new electrical in, and it just never actually got done.
No. The electrical's in the building. Somebody needs to run the wire. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. But they said they did it, and they charged you for it, and probably charged you double time on that as well. But
it's like designing for a chef. That's one of the biggest problems. Is the chef, because usually by the time you're done, and they all know and I agree, if they got to work with it, I want their input. And, this guy likes this on the left side, this guy likes it on the right side, this guy likes that, whatever. But 9 times out of 10, by the time the building gets built, that chef's long gone, and you get the next chef who says, this is the worst designed kitchen I've ever seen in my life. And then you start over, and then every 2-3 years, you get a new chef and a new set of instructions. So you roll with the punches.
Exactly. Well, I know you've been doing this a long time, so there's been a lot of rolling with the punches over your career. What's one piece of advice you'd give to anyone thinking of becoming a food service consultant, whether they're a recent college graduate or maybe somebody that's looking to get out of operations and do a career transition? What's one piece of advice you give to someone?
I'm a big believer in understanding the operations. So even if you're doing design work, if you've worked in a restaurant and you've seen, how a dishwasher works, or, the conditions the employees are in, why they need air conditioning. And, we still have to fight for that in some places of, aisles that are wide enough and equipment that rolls and that type of thing. I think that's invaluable, that to understand how the day-to-day stuff works. The other end of that, obviously, is to listen to all the other consultants on a project and get as much input as possible. If you can make their job easier by doing something one way or the other, it just makes the project fall in place that much better.
Well, and to expand on something you touched on a little bit earlier too, it kind of, because you've been doing this a long time, like I said, how important is that relationship that you have with the manufacturer and the rep? And maybe for somebody that doesn't really know how it works, what do they mean to you as a consultant, and how do you rely on them on a regular basis?
Well, I'll talk about the reps primarily. It's interesting, right, and you probably won't want to use this, but when I say it about the manufacturers, but you always get the question, well, do you know this is our sister company and this is our sister company and this? It's like, one, I can't keep track of whose sister company it is, but no, I like these ice machines and I like this beer system, and who owns them, I really don't care about. Now, there are times when it makes sense to try to package it together. I understand that. But what I really like are the reps that call on you, that are there when you need them and there when you don't need them too. But they're always it's a quick phone call and you'll say, I have a question with this. This doesn't seem right. How do we fix it? And they get back. They may not always have the answer right away, but they get back to you quickly. And then they kind of carry the ball and make sure that it gets done. And I think that's invaluable. And they also keep you up to date on the newest and the latest, and maybe you guys should look at this, and maybe this piece of equipment that we just brought out would be better than that old piece of equipment that you've always spec'd. And I will say, during the pandemic, I mean, I learned more, I think, I probably shouldn't say this, but, the in-person sales calls are nice, but you always end up spending a lot of time talking and going out to eat, have a good time. Whereas the pandemic, the Zoom calls, I mean, they really got into the nitty gritty, and you could sit there and look at the piece of equipment and how does it work and how does it fit in. And I thought those were very helpful.
That's great. Are they still doing a lot of those, or have they gotten away from that now that we're away from COVID?
They've certainly gotten away, but not all of them. I mean, I know Middleby, I get, it's like every week they'll spotlight one of their many brands. And the Ali Group will do the same thing. I mean, a lot of them, especially now that they've become big conglomerates, we'll just take one at a time and just point out some of the things they do. One of the things I didn't really mention at the beginning, I'm not doing design work anymore.
Right.
So one of the transitions has been going back just to management consulting or management advisory services, whatever you want to call it. And so while I still talk to the reps and I still talk to manufacturers, still send me information, everything, and I find it interesting, and I like to stay up on what's happening in the business. I'm not attending as many of the educational sessions for that.
Interesting.
Unless now we're getting into as we did at the FCSI, the whole frictionless POS systems and technology and that end of the equipment side, but not so much the ovens and walk-in coolers.
Yeah, we've had that's a lot of people talking in this season about frictionless payments and POS systems and how, as a consultant, it's getting more and more important that you really do need to know. It's not just a cash register anymore. You better know a lot more about it now, because it's kind of like, probably I would envision it to being sort of like CAD or Revit or whatever. It's coming. It's not going away, and you better get to know it very soon, or else you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess depending on your point of view, I mean, the whole thing started off with Amazon and those Amazon Go stores. And then zip in, and now there's probably 5 manufacturers doing it. It kind of is getting like the POS business, in that there'll be 30 manufacturers soon doing the frictionless, and then some will go out of business and some will get merged, and so it is tough to stay on top of it always. And then in our accounts, our clients, all the sports teams, of course, have their own IT. And they all want everything to go through their app. So that adds another layer. It's not just the operator that has to do this, but they want to collect all that data. Right. So it's you gotta make sure everybody's in the room at the same time, agreeing on how this is going to work.
Well, to your point earlier, that operator, or not that operator, but that owner wants to know, are they selling enough hot dogs at that price? And they don't want to have to rely on an operator's app to tell them that. They want to know that they can order food from their app, however it is. And of course, they're the one paying the bill. So you got to figure that out as a consultant.
Yeah. And pricing, normally in the concession business, it was a once a year exercise of, price increases during the off season. Nowadays you have, pricing that changes by game, just like the ticket prices do. You have specials, you have the dollar menu, the fan-friendly menu. Every team has a little different way of doing it. And of course, the big question is, other than obviously the person that pays less is happy, does it really move the needle? Are we selling more? Are we selling more tickets, which is really the goal of the team? And that the jury's still out on that. I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal notes, and you can make these graphs and everything look anything you want, but there's still a question of how much is it, how much price sensitivity is there. So it's
well, that's all the formal questions I've got for you. But before we get going, I've got these regular questions I like to throw out at the end that are kind of fun. For this season, I've gone back into the bag and pulled some of the best ones out. So I hope you'll enjoy some of these.
There were best ones?
Kind of. Yeah, I think maybe.
Okay.
It's all kind of like whether it's price sensitive. It's in the eyes of the beholder. So
I got you.
So the first one is, would you rather be able to teleport anywhere in the world or be able to read people's minds?
I'd like to read people's minds.
Have all the traffic lights you approach turn green or never have to stand in line again?
Oh, man. I can't have both.
Nope, only one.
And again, a little odd that being in the concession business and lines are kind of part of life. I hate standing in line.
Right. Would you rather fight a duck the size of a horse or 100 horses the size of a duck?
I'll do the duck.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Toilet paper roll, over or under when you put it on?
Always over. Has to be.
Double dipping when it comes to sauces and avocado, guacamole and things like that. Yes or no to double dipping?
Yeah, depending on how well you know the crowd there that you're double dipping on. So yes, I think it's within reason. Okay. Yes.
Favorite curse word, and we'll bleep it out.
There is only one, isn't there?
I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I believe there's one word.
All right.
And that would be it.
Would you rather know all the secrets to outer space or all the secrets to the ocean?
Ooh, maybe the ocean. Okay. Yeah, the ocean.
Would you rather never have to do laundry again or never have to wash dishes again?
Let's say laundry.
Okay.
Too many rules with laundry that I can't remember.
Would you rather go backstage with your favorite band or be an extra on a favorite TV show?
I'd do the extra.
Yeah, and what TV show?
Because again, my favorite band, all those people are dead. So
you can still go
backstage.
You can still go backstage on a dead person. We'll open it up.
That's a hologram or something. Yeah.
What TV show do you think you'd be an extra on? It could be either today's shows or anything from the past that you would have liked to have been on.
Oh, geez. I haven't been getting into a lot of old. I tell you, the show I got hooked over the holidays. They did the West Wing.
Oh yeah.
Marathon. In fact, I think they did it twice, and I forgot how good a show that was. So I'll say West Wing.
Would you?
Barney Miller would be another.
Barney Miller would be. I think that would have been fun to be behind the scenes and watching that happen.
Yes. Yeah. For the guys that are still alive that are in the cast.
Correct. Well, or go back in
Yeah.
time and be able to be an extra back then.
Okay.
Would you rather have a personal housekeeper or have a personal chef?
Oh, I'd take the housekeeper anytime.
Would you rather always have an annoying song stuck in your head or have an itch that you can't reach?
Oh, I'd rather have the song.
And the last one for you is, would you rather give up your cell phone for an entire month or give up bathing for an entire month?
Oh, I'd give up my cell phone before I gave up bathing. Yes.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions we've got for you today. But before we let you go, let people know how they can find out more about you and your company, Chris.
Sure. They can certainly email me, which is Chris Bigelow at bigelowcompanies.com, or give me a call the old-fashioned way. I still accept phone calls, which is 816-985-5326, and operators are on call 24 hours a day.
Perfect. Well, hey, that wraps up this edition of On Tap presented by FCSI The Americas. A special thanks to Chris for joining us on the show today. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, and also help us out by sharing these episodes on your social media feeds. Until our next episode, cheers.